One day in heaven, an angel rebelled against God and became a force of pure evil. He is the ruler of hell and the ultimate evil itself. For this year's Halloween, I'm gonna start off all the horror with the top 10 greatest devils. How to describe the devil? Well, he's the opposite to God, and wants nothing more but to get out of his infernal cage and rule over heaven and earth along with the rest of the universe. As the title of the video says, we're gonna look over 10 satanic rulers. Not for which one's the coolest, but the one that's the most evil, and the one that oozes out originality. In terms of what I'm going to put on the list, I'm not gonna put the typical folklore of the devil. Only devils from TV, video games, anime, memes, you get the idea. Enough small talk, let the horror fest begin. Our first entry consists on a creature that may not be the devil, but still has the qualities of one. At the number 10th spot, we have the mascot of Platinum, the third and final member of the Creation Trio, and the ruler of the Distortion World, Giratina. Now, what has already been said about Giratina? Well, many people theory that he is the Pokemon equivalent of Satan himself. And what does it take to prove that he truly is the devil? Let us find out. First, let's start with Pokedex entries. Pokedex entry number 1. A Pokemon that is said to live in a world on the reverse side of ours. It appears in an ancient cemetery. Ain't that enough proof that Giratina lives in the Pokemon equivalent of hell? But how exactly did he got there? Let's find out on the next Pokedex entry. Pokedex entry number 2. It was banished for its violence. It silently gazed upon the old world from the Distortion World. Yeah, this is all very similar. Like Giratina, Satan was banished to hell for being a naughty little angel to God. I mean, he really must have won in the throne room all to himself. And for our final Pokedex entry, this Pokemon is said to live in a world on the reverse side of ours, where common knowledge is distorted and strange. Also, Giratina has 6 wings, 6 ribs, and 6 spikes, and in his alter form, 6 legs, 6 ribs, and 6 spikes. Number of hell, anyone? And if numbers are not the case, then just look at Giratina's kick-ass design. Sweet lord, that has got to be the coolest Gen 4 legendary I have seen. But wait, there's more. Now that I've given Giratina's satanic qualities, I will now mention on what he lacks on being the devil. Let's see, what does he lack of? Well, everything. For one thing, Giratina hasn't done anything that evil. Sure, he was a pretty aggressive pocket monster, but he hasn't done anything that was that unforgivable. And then there's the Distortion World. Despite all what I said about it in the beginning, there is nothing absolutely hellish about this place, and there's several occasions where people got in and out of this place. In the end, it's just a freak dimension with no logic to it whatsoever. And as for the horrific scene where Giratina appears as a shadowy figure, well, he merely done that in order to stop Cyrus from using Dialga and Palkia to create a new universe. So yeah, if it weren't for him, the whole universe would have been destroyed. This is what puts Giratina on the number 10th spot. He has so many qualities of the devil, let alone a satanic figure, but doesn't know how to execute those qualities. Nevertheless, I still like Giratina. He has a cool design, an interesting origin, and just a cool 4th gen Pokemon that I really like. Just not as much as the other demons on the list. On the number 9 spot, we have arguably the toughest and most evil enemy Godzilla has to face. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Destroyer! Yeah, I'll be using this joke. So why did I put Destroyer higher than Giratina? Well, like I said, everything. For one thing, compared to Giratina's design, Destroyer design does actually resemble the devil. And if that ain't enough, Destroyer is actually evil. And I mean it, evil. Well, how evil can he be, Red? Well, as sadistic as, I don't know, killing Godzilla's son and causing mass destruction in Japan? Of course, this pisses off the king of the monsters, and the two giants fight. But even then, Destroyer proves to be an incredibly tough opponent. Destroyer also has a very cool arsenal in his disposal. He has claws, wings that enable flight, a blade-like horn that can slice things up, his own breath attack, and several stages to his evolution. And let's not forget this guy's backstory. While it's not like the Devil's story, it's still very interesting. Destroyer was once a single-cell organism before being awakened and mutated by the Oxygen Destroyer, the weapon that killed the first Godzilla. Then, scientists found him in Godzilla's remain, and the creature escaped. First starting off as a parasitic cell-like creature, then evolves into a smorgasbord of xenomorph spider crab-like monsters, then into one big spider crab, a winged demon, and finally his badass final form. In the end, Destroyer's design, destructive nature, and arsenal alone puts him on the list. Destroyer, living definition of badassery. Teleporting at the number 8 spot, we have the godly time-devouring deity Solaris, along with his hellish and manipulative counterparts, Iblis and Mephiles. Now at first glance, Solaris doesn't look that much of a devil compared to Destroyer, but remember, this is a list on who's more evil, not who's cooler, and Solaris is far more evil. While Destroyer wants to destroy all of Japan, or probably even the Earth, Solaris wants to devour all of time and even the universe itself. Damn! Now, even if you don't like Sonic 06, you have to admit that Solaris is a very good villain. One of the few villains with a god complex in the Sonic series. Solaris was once an eternal flame on a glass jar with the powers of time travel. The Duke of Soliana wanted to harness the Solaris' powers in order to make a world where mankind can learn from their mistakes, and for the Duke to reunite with his wife. This results in the Duke making tests on the flame in order to harness its powers of time travel. However, the experimentation goes horribly wrong and Solaris explodes and splits into two entities, Iblis and Mephiles. They were then sealed away, Iblis in Elise's body and Mephiles in the Scepter of Darkness. 10 years later in the events of the game, Mephiles breaks free from his cage and into the form of Shadow. He then attempts to collect all the Chaos Emeralds and tries to make Elise cry in order to release Iblis. But let's get to the basics of these guys. Mephiles is scheming, manipulative, pure sadistic, and has a huge degree of invincibility. And on the other hand, Iblis is mindless, brutal, destructive, all-powerful, yet still has a huge degree of invincibility. And as for what I think of Iblis, well, he's awesome, ain't no doubt about it, and you can't go wrong with a monster whose name is based on the devil of Islam folklore. The only problem with Iblis is that he doesn't appear that much, thus he doesn't have that much of an impact to the story compared to Mephiles. Still, he's really cool, and you'll be fucked when you're in his world. And then there is Mephiles, and dear Satan, this guy is badass, and quite intimidating with his design and voice. You gotta love this guy's fantastic dialogue. And also, he's voiced by Dan Green, no question asked. And besides, he's the only villain who actually managed to kill Sonic! Yes, as for today, Mephiles is the only villain in the Sonic franchise that pulled off a Kefka and actually managed to succeed in his goal in killing Sonic the Hedgehog, making Elise cry in order to free Iblis and merge with him to become Solaris once more. That is awesome! All the main characters get transported into a timeless void and all hope seems lost, only for Elise to tell everyone that Sonic is dead. So everyone goes out into the timeless void to get all the Chaos Emeralds to bring back Sonic from the dead, and lead to a horrific scene where Elise kisses Sonic. Sonic becomes a Super Saiyan Hedgehog along with Silver and Shadow, and they go and duke it out with Solaris. The deed is done, and Sonic and Elise get teleported back to the past where it all happened, and Elise blows Solaris out of existence, erasing all of the events that happened in the game. In the end, Solaris is an original and creative Sonic villain. He's not that kind of person that you would call the devil at first glance, but he surely has an evil motivation and an interesting backstory. Now let's get to the fun. I'm kind of cheating on this list considering this is a devil from a Godzilla creepypasta, but he isn't a Toho-made creation, so that gives them the qualities to be on this list. Nevertheless, we have Red from Godzilla NES creepypasta. You might just be asking, who is Red? Well, I'll give you everything you need to know about this guy by getting into this devil's backstory. Red is a demon of some sort who resides in a hellish planet known as Zenith. One day he possesses a cartridge of Godzilla NES, Monster of Monsters, which was then later given to Zachary, the main character of the creepypasta. As he starts playing while taking scream caps, he starts to encounter strange things that weren't present in the original game, and he eventually encounters Red himself. According to the creepypasta, Red is super fast and will constantly chase the player throughout the game, and if he touches you once, it's game over. But when he's a boss, he can't kill you. How the hell does that work? And like Destroyer, this fiend has quite the arsenal. He has claw attacks, sharp leg appendages, an impaling tail, a hellish fire breath attack, able to shoot fire out of his hands, throwing spike boulders up in the sky, acid projectile, and like Destroyer, multiple forms. His normal form is used for ground travel, and while he's under the water, he's in his aquatic form. And then there's his flight form, which is the coolest out of Red's forms. He can fly and slam down on you if you get too close to him. And then there's his final form, in which he's at his most powerful. It is here where he slaughters all of the monster, including Godzilla, and all hope seems lost, until the ghost of Zack's friend, Melissa, comes, and offers Zack the final monster to defeat Red. In the end, Red is awesome. He has a scary design and an interesting concept altogether. Now let's get to Devil 666 of all things. At the number 666 spot, we have what many people consider to be the devil of Cartoon Network. Scratch that, the devil of all child media. Ladies and gentlemen, we have him from the Powerpuff Girls. Him is one creepy bastard for a violent yet light-hearted show, and like I said before, he's the devil of the cartoon universe, unless you have second farts for Aku or even the Red Guy. And if there's another thing we can agree on him, is that with almost every episode he appears in, he's the guy who shifts the tone of the show, from cutesy and light-hearted to dark and sinister. I also love this guy's motives. Besides his usual goal of trying to take over the world, him mostly wants to torture the girls till the brink of insanity. This leads to events such as him taking over the minds of all the girls' loved ones, him exploring all the girls' fears in the horrific Nightmare episode, and much, much more. When I first started watching Powerpuff Girls as a kid, I didn't expect much for the villains. Sure, they were evil, but nothing to get my attention. But when I saw him, holy heck, son. I mean, what the hell is he? He looks like a crab man with that red skin and claws when I first saw him. And let's not forget him's most memorable and most horrific moment, the episode Speed Demon. In this episode, the girls tried to fly back to their home, primarily out of excitement, but they flew so fast that they get transported 50 years into the future, in where they glimpse at a horrible, hellish alternate timeline. And who's responsible for this madness? Him! Yes, ever since the girls left their home for 50 years, Him took over, and he proceeds to torment the girls for leaving the Earth defenseless to his grasp. He then turns into his badass final form, and then the girls' loved ones appear, who were zombified and subjected to Him's torment, and they proceed to blame the girls for their suffering. This is definitely Him's most villainous moment. The animation is dark and gritty, the atmosphere and scenery is scary and horrific, and Him is just so cool and badass in his satanic final form. And into thinking that there wouldn't be a more horrific devil in all of child cinema. Huh, oh, think again. But first, let's get to another devil. Before you ask, yes, I had played World of Warcraft, but let's just say, I'm not one of those experienced hardcore WoW nerds. I just play the game for fun, and I only got as high as level 19. Nevertheless, we have Deathwing from World of Warcraft Cataclysm. Now this is one badass devil. Now Deathwing may not be the definitive devil of the WoW universe, but he sure had done a lot of unforgivable things to be considered one. I mean, come on! The world of Azeroth is being torn apart by the Cataclysm, and millions of people and family are suffering because of him! Of course, there's this guy's backstory. I won't give you it in full, of course that'll take aeons, but I'll give you a quick synopsis. In the beginning of the World of Warcraft universe, way back before the time of the Titans and Old Gods, there was an all-powerful proto-dragon named Galakrond. Being a massive proto-dragon, he was feared by all and thinks of all the other proto-dragons as his food source. Feared by all, of course, except for one, Neltharion, a mischievous proto-dragon. Unlike all the other proto-dragons who would fly away and head back to their cave in fear, Neltharion would bully and taunt the other dragons. Neltharion would then make friends with Malygos, a more intelligent proto-dragon, after saving his ass from Koros and his other two proto-dragons. Becoming his one and only friend, Neltharion would then declare Malygos as that he is his brother and blood. Skipping ahead many years later to the time when the Titans sealed away the Old Gods, who I'm guessing are Lovecraftian horrors of the WoW universe, the Titans started to create new experiments, thus resulting in the birth of Azeroth. The Titan would then charge 5 dragons with the powers of life, time, and magic, and Neltharion was one of them. The Titan Khaz'goroth then blessed and bestowed upon him great powers, and thus he became Neltharion, the Earth Wanderer. He shaped the Earth and protected Azeroth from all intruders for many years, and as those years passed, he became tired of his work, and was convinced that the world no longer needed his help. It is here that Neltharion would then become manipulated by the Old Gods until he eventually succumbs to their influence. Skipping ahead one more time, we cut to the time when the Burning Legion came to conquer Azeroth, and Neltharion had a plan on stopping them. This plan required the rest of the dragon aspects to pour a bit of their power into a magical artifact called the Dragon Soul, which with enough power can utterly decimate the Legion once and for all. Though he had failed to mention that he himself did not pour out his power into the artifact, and by the time the aspects unleash the power of the Dragon Soul, basically, shit hits the fan and a huge majority of people die or get petrified. With a heinous crime committed, Neltharion would then leave behind his title of Earth Wanderer, and thus he became Deathwing, the Destroyer. The fact that Deathwing was responsible for so much death and destruction is well enough to put him on the list. Now let's move on, shall we? Oh Well, yeah, you all knew who was gonna be somewhere on the list. And at the number 4 spot, we have Chernobog from Nightingale Mountain Fantasia. Seriously, this guy is pretty much the devil of the Disney universe. Besides, the only other devil that comes in mind is the Shadow Block from Epic Mickey. This is certainly the darkest Disney has ever gone. I mean, come on! We see Chernobog playing with the souls of the dead, turning beauty into the sheer disgust, and there's harpies with nipples. Let me repeat to you. Harpies with nipples! That is messed up for Disney standard. Pretty much the traumatizer of many of your kids' childhoods. And that's why Chernobog's on the list. He doesn't do much and he doesn't have any true desires, but as a representative of hell, it works. That's right, at the number 3 spot we have the Harbor of Insanity, the bringer of the apocalypse, and most of all, the devil of the creepypasta world, Zalgo. Now, I've already put Red, another creepypasta character, on the list as the devil, but Zalgo is the true Satan. Zalgo is an entity of some sort that is said to one day bring the end of humanity and plunge the earth into death and insanity. He's described as a shadowy entity who waits behind the walls and has 7 mouths and holds a dead star and a long candle, and perhaps he originates from Lovecraftian horrors. He's also not just an ominous entity, but he's also a meme in which people take characters from cartoons and comic strips and corrupt them into horrific entities. This usually happens when a character says, "He comes," and then mutates into Zalgo's minions, so he can pretty much corrupt you the instant he touches you. To me, it begs the question, where did he came from and where is he sealed in? Oh well, maybe I don't wanna know. Zalgo was once an edited comic created by Something Awful and his popularity is constantly growing. However, we still have 2 more devils, so buckle up. At the number 2 spot, we have what many consider to be the most evil video game character of all time, Otto, from the 1980 arcade game Berserk. Those of you who don't know about the creepypasta might just be baffled. Why would a spear with a happy face be placed higher than Zalgo? Well, I'll tell you why, because within that happy face lies something dark and sinister. Before I give you the reason on why Otto is such a devil, let's get to the basics. Otto is an enemy from the arcade game Berserk. The thing about Otto is that he cannot be killed and can pass through walls and will hunt you down relentlessly. He's named by one of the game developer's bosses, named Otto, who has a big shit-eating grin. So why does Otto have such an evil reputation? Here's why. In 1981, a 19-year-old boy went to play an arcade cabinet of Berserk, and as he's playing, he proceeds to get chased by Otto until his character eventually gets killed by him. He then proceeds to type in his high score and name into the game, and in the instant he finished posting his high score into the game, he died of a heart attack. And it's not over yet. A year later, another person died of a heart attack, just like the first person. Whether he did kill those men or it's just a pure coincidence, there is no doubt about it. Otto is the most evil video game character of all time, and he might just kill you and watch you die with a smile on his face. Before we talk about the number one devil, it's now time for some honorable mentions. Honorable mentions number 1, Gauss. For a person who happens to be a fan of the color red, I'm also a bit of a sucker for kaiju films, and Gauss is no exception. I like to think of Gauss as the titan of the kaiju universe. It has no happiness, no emotions. All it wants to do is eat off as much of humanity as it can, and kill off Gamera if he ever gets in its way. Despite all of this, he was just too outclassed by the villainous Destroyer! Honorable mentions number 2, Gigas. Yes, I'm pretty sure some of you wanted Gigas to be on the list the instant you saw the title of my video. Though to be honest, he's not that much of a devil as he seems to me. Those of you who wanted to be on the list are just thinking of his spirit form when he's really an alien. Honorable mentions number 3, Sonic.exe, a devil who I had a hard time on deciding whether he should be on the list or not. In the end, I scrapped him out of the list completely. The whole Eve dethroning Satan thing kinda turned me off. And as for devils like Lucifer from Dante's Inferno, Darkness from Darkness series, and Diablo from Diablo series are not there on the list because I haven't played those games. And while I haven't played Berserk either, that devil Otto is mostly from the creepypasta series and not from the actual game. And now, let's recap. Number 10, Giratina. Number 9, Destroyer! Number 8, Solaris. Number 7, Red. Number 6, him. Number 5, Deathwing. Number 4, Chernobog. Number 3, Zolgo. And number 2, Otto. This devil is the ultimate evil. The essence of hatred and sin itself. The reason why there's evil in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, Yami from Okami. Yeah, that's right. Yami, to me, is the most evil, most original, and most of all, the greatest devil of all time. You might be confused on why Otto isn't higher than Yami, and even I said that Otto is the most evil video game character of all time, but he barely managed to reach the number 1 spot. What puts Yami higher than Otto is his creativity, design concept, and symbolism. What I find unique about the Yami is his concept. Unlike all the other devils on the list, the Yami isn't some demon, a god, or even human. It's a machine, and in this case, that's very original. Yami basically symbolizes the evil that mankind does, and he shows it in 4 unique forms. First, he reveals his true self, a little fish thing in a glass jar. This symbolizes no matter how cute or innocent a person or thing might look like, it can be capable for mass destruction, and that all evil starts out small. Yami then proceeds to take all of Amaterasu's powers away, and thus the battle begins, in which you retaliate by beating up the Yami and slowly gain all of your powers back. His first form attacks by breaking the floor with hammers, charging at you with blades, and shooting at you with missiles, symbolizing humanity's desire for destruction. His second form attacks you like a serpent and can turn into a flaming fireball, symbolizing mankind's desire to burn things to the ground. Then there's his third form, a giant slot machine, in which you have to power slash the slots to see what attacks he does, symbolizing humanity's desires of willing to take risks. And then there's his fourth form, a two-legged walking machine with electrical web arms, symbolizing humanity's desires to use technology for destructive purposes. After beating down the Yami and gaining all your powers back, the Yami collapses and the fight is over. Or so you thought. Yami then snatches Amaterasu Amaterasu and proceeds to destroy all of the celestial brush gods and turns into his final form, a hand, thus symbolizing that all evil starts from the use of our hands. And that's actually surprisingly true. Think about it. Whether you're stabbing someone with a knife or shooting someone with a gun, all those heinous acts come from the use of our very own hands. And even in death, Yami comes back in the form of Akuro, the main villain of Okami-den. And by my word, as long as there's evil in the world, Yami will not truly die, even years after both Chibi and Amaterasu had passed. So in the end, what makes Yami the most evil figure of all time is his symbolism, influence, and concept. I'm the new guy in red, and happy Halloween!